Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about an exciting new product that's going to make digital interactivity a lot more fun, real time, and three-dimensional for blind users. But it's also something that we're excited that is going to bring blind users and sighted users together because we're working on something that we think is not only going to help blind people reach a new level of digital creativity, but is going to do the same for extremely young sighted people and create an environment where sighted people and blind people can create things that are compelling together, which is something we're really excited to tell you all about today. I'm going to be jumping around this presentation a little bit. And if anyone has any questions, obviously I probably won't be able to see your raised hands and stuff, but feel free to interrupt me, no big deal. Otherwise, of course, I'll take questions at the end. Okay, so just a brief background on myself. I started this company a few months ago formally, but we've been working on this. I've been working on this with some of my best friends for a very long time, years and years actually. And in my career, I've actually focused on applications of computer vision. And so on the screen right now, for those who cannot see, there are three images. From the bottom left is an image of hospital inventory shelf that has vaccine boxes on it, where each vaccine box is within a bounding box. There is a square of a color drawn around each vaccine box. And the only reason I show these images is to say I have a background in using computer cameras to recognize objects in a scene. And I have some experience doing that in the medical context, specifically for counting the number of vaccines or supplies. But really, my passion in my career has been in teaching other blind people how to write code and design things digitally. For me, software engineering has opened up a huge number of opportunities, and it's been a real gift for me to get to try and pass down some of those opportunities to others. However, as you'll hear today, while I absolutely want to continue teaching blind students how to code, I ultimately hit a limit, or my colleagues and I hit a limit in what we were able to teach, given the tools that we had at our disposal. Fortunately, speaking of my colleagues, I am working on this project with one of my best friends. He and I actually lived in the same freshman dorm 10 years ago at Stanford and worked on a number of projects. He himself has done a lot of incredible work around um, computer applications that have really complicated physics and that use artificial intelligence to make those physics as realistic and as predictive as possible. And as you'll see, some of the things we're making actually use some pretty complicated physics. And so we're really excited that we get to take all the things that we learned in school and translate them into a product that we think you guys are really going to love. Okay, so like I mentioned, we began this journey trying to teach kids how to code. But we found that there was a challenge even beneath teaching kids how to code, teaching blind kids how to code. And that's obviously the challenge of proving that blind kids can code or that it's worth even starting blind kids down this journey of coding. Because as we all know, sometimes expectations of blind people are really low. And so what we did to try and overcome these expectations was to design a class with a symbolic outcome. On the screen right now, you can see my first student, a young man named actually Man from Thailand, who is solving a tactile Rubik's Cube, which is something an idea we borrowed for this class. Essentially, we wanted to show, okay, blind people, are smart. We're capable of doing complicated things. And we had this challenge of uh, making that statement for a student who couldn't speak any English. That happened just because we had this opportunity to work with this foundation. Anyways, we used this tactile Rubik's Cube to teach them the really basic programming concepts, for example, if statements, for loops, while loops, because we found that you can express the solution for a Rubik's Cube, like all the steps you need to do to solve it, really easily in terms of for statements, for loops, if statements, while statements, and so on. And as you guys know who've programmed, if you can understand how to use those basic concepts, you're really on your way to writing complete programs. And so it was really exciting for us to um, show that these students could understand these principles, and for them to have a way of showing it that really got people excited about the future of blind people and creativity and in this field. Um, but of course, we wanted to go to the next level. Being able to teach blind students how to solve this Rubik's cube using coding ideas was great, but it really only was as great as the next level of what they could make. And so what we would do as they were solving the tactile Rubik's cube tactilely with their hands, they would also be writing code to actually write the code that represents what they were doing with their hands, to start to build that understanding between the physical and the digital. And ultimately, in this first course that we did, we had all the students learn to make complete websites and deploy these websites using modern tools, including Node.js and GitHub, specifically GitHub Pages. However, what we found is, we had to rely on templates to an extent for the layouts of these websites. And so, for example, we used a, a system called Jekyll, which has a lot of really great, rich templates that make it straightforward for anyone to lay out a website that looks pretty good and really fast. The other upside of Jekyll is that it's easy to deploy using GitHub Pages for anyone who's in the market for a website, but I'm digressing. The point is that after we had this initial success with the Rubik's Cube, we got funding from the Ministry of Thailand to gather blind students from every corner of Thailand, age 18 to 45. We had about 20 of them, and we all convened at Mahadol University for 16 days, no weekends, coding all day, every day. And by the end of it, all the students were able to work in groups of 4 and collaboratively create these websites where I would look over their shoulders at their Git commit histories to make sure they were actually all committing code and pulling the latest code, that their colleagues were contributing as well. And all together, we had 4 groups of 4. At the end, we had 16 make it all the way through the class at this stage. And they actually created these great websites where they not only showed that they could work as a team to collaboratively produce something that looked professional, but what was even more exciting is that the ability to publish their work and to speak their mind, so to speak, in this way, caused them to have great ideas and to push the envelope of their ambitions. So, for example, you see this blind travel website that this team designed and implemented and deployed to surface accessible travel experiences for other blind people. So I thought that was really awesome. That they seem to go hand in hand, this ambition and their ability to create stuff. But like I mentioned, there was this limit of having to use templates. Right now, using screen readers, it's hard for a blind person using JAWS or VoiceOver to get a great sense of this thing is above this thing versus this thing is to the left or to the right of this thing, or even this thing is larger than this thing. These things can be explained through text, and obviously there have been some attempts to using pitch shift and stereo pan, things like that, to express a sense of space. But the reality is that there's still a lot of work to do in this area. And so templates have been the way to go. But how do we break through, right? And what's keeping us from there? Well, here's a touchscreen based approach in a video. I'm sure you guys have all kind of lived this, but this is just a short video that showcases touchscreen controls of Keynote on an iPad, and really the challenge really with using a screen reader, using a lot of text narration to move things around on a touchscreen, is that the controls they start to get really cramped really fast. I'm sure we've all had the experience of using VoiceOver on a web browser and having to enter action areas and then further enter a text field, so on and so forth. It gets tedious fast. It's a lot to digest, and you can adjust the verbosity, but it's not an ideal solution. It certainly doesn't approach the degree of freedom that a sighted user has using an application like Adobe Illustrator or Figma. And so how do we push to a UX for digital design, for layout design, for even illustration for the blind, that approaches an experience like Figma? Well, we think that it has to do with separating out the physical from the digital. And so we experienced it for a long time, and we started creating this real-time website developer tool where we took real physical pieces that were cut out and have a code on them. And each physical piece represents a portion of the website. So for example, the the top of every website is very often a long, skinny, horizontal bar that holds the name of the website and usually a few key links. We're all familiar with this as a navigation bar. Sometimes these navigation bars are on the side, sometimes they're on the top. But you can generally recognize a navigation bar as the long, skinny thing on top. And so this website happens to have this website that we're showing in this video happens to have that long, skinny navigation bar. And in this demonstration we created, if a blind user wanted to understand the dimensions of each piece of the website, they could just reach into it and actually feel the dimensions of each section because there's a cutout physical piece that actually obeys the same physical dimensions as the digital dimensions that are rendered. And additionally, users can take any of these pieces and rearrange them, and the website moves and updates in real time. So the user can basically uh, rearrange the dimensions of the website without having to write any code and while having a tactile representation or reference of the website. So obviously this can be great for just even explaining to really young kids who have never seen a website, kind of what's going on. Um, and I think it's a natural question as well. Why does it matter? If blind people aren't going to experience websites in a visual way, why should they build a visual skill set? Why should they be learning to make things in a visual way, so to speak? Well, my opinion is that ultimately the market is sighted. And ultimately, if we want to create more and more value for ourselves, we need to be able to engage with sighted society and create sighted value. Um, and so, I think that we do need to keep pushing. And with regards to how we can hear back the things we make tactilely in a way that is also more compelling, I think there's a lot of promise there as well. And so we're additionally working on spatial audio representations of these websites, which is a part of my research in my as an incoming PhD student. But again, digressing a little bit, the point is that we can do this. We can achieve a UX that is as good as Figma or Illustrator, that can actually create compelling visual experiences in a way that a blind person can interact with. And so we're excited. We actually did this demonstration in 2019. So this is like what you're seeing. This video is 3 going on 4 years old. And at the time, our vision was to have this tool. So this tool you're seeing here actually renders a code in a framework called React, and so it's really spitting out good stuff and good accessible code. But um, the market for accessible websites is it's not in bad shape. I think there are a lot of solutions out there that enable people to build and check whether their websites are accessible. Um, and there's actually something new happening in the world, which is 3D, VR, augmented reality, and even the majority of video games and more interactive experiences are happening in 3D. And so we went back to the drawing board after this video and have spent years thinking about, okay, how can we make 3D more accessible? And along the way, we actually found that 3D is hard for everybody. I myself, I'm a 3D artist, so I've lived this pain, and I should say I'm obviously legally blind. I probably wouldn't be giving this talk quite as passionately. But I'm very lucky that I am able of using the computer using a screen magnification. And so, I sit within an inch of the screen and zoom in like 15 times and, get it done. It's painful, but possible. But the cool thing about 3D is that if we apply the same idea of taking a digital thing that you can, or excuse me, a physical thing that you can just move around, 3D actually becomes a lot more fun and becomes a lot more intuitive. But one last thing to say about um, why we're taking the approach of having physical pieces that you can move around is because um, while we all want tactile touchscreens for, like as a Kindle-like experience and for tactile graphics, unfortunately they're not going to scale for 3D. We'd have to have them get really, really tall. That'd be really expensive. And so we need a bit of a different approach here if we're going to make 3D development accessible. And so our our motivation here was again to take take the digital and make it physical. And so we call it a pixel you can plug. And so the approach we're taking is to take every pixel on the screen and have you be able to pick it up in your hand and hold it as if it were a real physical cube. And from these cubes, you can see you can do some pretty interesting stuff. Um, in Altogether, the system that we have created uses any iPhone. It can run pretty much any iPhone you have that has Face ID. And what you will get is a forehead strap. We're at this point not intending to cover your eyes, because obviously this is intended for blind users. And so you're basically wearing a third eye. You get a forehead strap for your iPhone. You launch our app, and you get 64 of these magic cubes, from which you can build all kinds of things. And so essentially, you put on your head strap, fire up the app, and you look down on these cubes. And again, these cubes represent like building blocks. So they're basically like Lego pieces that you can use to make digital stuff, kind of like Minecraft in real life. And so here's our latest demo that shows our new magnetic blocks and a very, very simple augmented reality application. So you can see here, we've pasted a QR code in the center of it. Eventually, the QR codes will be on the edges. But so right now, there's a user holding a cube, and he's flipping it. And as he flips the face, there is a superimposed animation that shows different textures that map to each side of the face, of the cube rather. And so I'm going to show this play this video again. So again, the camera is, you're wearing the iPhone. The iPhone is using its camera to see a cube, and each cube face has a tactile symbol that blind users will be able to feel to know, which face is which. But each face also has a code, and this code basically can make it so that the face can be anything. So for example, if you're building a terrain, like you want to build a three-dimensional video game world, and you want to have grass, and you want to have lava, and you want to have maybe some water, and then you're going to build a bridge over the water with wood. All you would have to do is pick up a cube and flip it, and every time you flip the face, you'll get an audio, like a looping audio sound that represents, either a wood sound or a lava sound, and you just place it down on a table. And as you can see in this video, you just place it down on the table, so you'll make a little lava cube, and they're magnetic, they magnetize to each other. And so now you can see here, you have a nice little hunk of lava that you can start to use and build your world. And as you can imagine, you can build, as extensively as you can with Minecraft. There's no limit to how many cubes you can have on screen. And what you're seeing here is going to be only a fraction of as good as it's going to be once we're fully done and ready to ship in 2023. But we're excited to show the progress that we have so far. And a couple other details, like we mentioned, we kind of call it like Minecraft in real life, and that actually is the last video I have for you. But we are planning a range of applications for this platform, and we've not forgotten about teaching code. To be clear, so we will absolutely be creating tools that enable layout definition for programmatic tasks. So for example, users will be able to use the cubes as an input to a traditional programming workflows. So for example, let's say you're implementing a website and you want to define a layout using something like CSS Grid. Well, you can use our cubes to define a CSS Grid based layout and export it as code. And then you can just go on your merry way and have a tactile understanding of the layout you just created for your website without having to plug in your refreshable braille display, because we know that refresher bros plays are great. They can be incredible as a code assistant, but for these two-dimensional layouts, they can get really tough. Um, Additionally, things you create with these cubes in 3 dimensions um, can be exported as .obj or STL. So you can 3D print them. You can put them as assets into other 3D experiences, again, alongside your programming workflows. And so we're really excited to unlock those things for people. Um, Additionally, as you can imagine, there's a lot of flexibility with how you can transform the shapes you make, because you have this tactile understanding of the shape, but the digitization of the shape allows you to not only add texture and color, but also curvature and other geometric transformations. And so you can get really out there. And of course, our rule is that anything you can see must be heard. And so everything I'm describing will have a really compelling audio, a seamless, continuous audio feedback loop. And so that is, the basis of, a lot of the industrial value that we hope to create over time with these cubes. But we're also extremely excited about the educational applications and the really entertainment or fun um, applications. So one major motivation for developing these cubes is an experience that I had teaching Game Design 1 at a school called StreetCode Academy in Palo Alto. StreetCode Academy has a lot of great programming for teaching underserved communities in East Palo Alto, programming skills, design skills, entrepreneurship skills. And I was really lucky to teach game design there. And what I found teaching game design was one, how much kids right now or have been over the last couple of years engaged with online communities like Roblox and Minecraft. Uh, these things are becoming, or they already are extremely central cultural experiences for kids. And at StreetCode, we actually teach Roblox Studio, and you wouldn't, man, I was shocked to see one how engaged kids were, how much they loved creating worlds for each other, just to facilitate each other, um, and just how far these kids have gone. And so um, it was really awakening for me to teach the class. But what I found was actually the hardest part of the class wasn't teaching them how to make good games. It was teaching them um, how to use the tools to make those games. Where Roblox Studio, which is the program you use to make these 3D worlds, is a great piece of software. It's intended to be easy to use. But even simple tasks like laying out one block on top of another and defining where your player starts in the game are actually pretty tough. They take definitely a bit of patience. Um, and so really a lot of the class revolves around just debugging Roblox Studio problems or sitting through long tutorials about how to import a sound or how to define your spawn point or your target victory point, checkpoint. Um, but the actual essence of what we want the kids to take away is more so the idea of fun, the idea of making a game fun by varying challenge, by increasing challenge gradually. Um, the the amount of computer skills that it takes to experiment with this idea of fun is actually very low, because really all our kids were making were like Super Mario, like 3D Super Mario platforming levels, where you just basically have like an obstacle course. Your character begins, they jump from platform to platform, and you make the jumps a little bit harder, or you make it so some of the blocks are lava and you have to avoid them, or some of the blocks, um, you know, you some of the blocks fall through when you touch them. You have to kind of memorize which are good blocks, which are bad blocks to jump on. Um, it doesn't take a whole lot of instrumentation for kids to start to understand how to make interesting and fun games. What's tough is just the software. And so we would like to offer Game Design 1 to blind students. And these cubes are going to be how we're going to do it. And so we're planning on having a workshop in the winter where we're going to teach Game Design 1 as it's taught to sighted kids. but with blind kids and sighted kids. We're hoping to have a half and half of each. And we think instead of making the course take weeks, that we can do it in a weekend. So that's something we're really excited about. And that's just one of the many applications. We support multiplayer. And so um, just like Figma, just like, these collaborative creative apps, you can have a lot of students in one room building, for example, a large house where some people are building, one person's building the living room, person's building the couch. And, you can all be in the same classroom, or you can have one person building the couch in a different room. Um, and then these digital pieces can be passed back and forth, and you can have one person construct like a village out of the houses that all the your members have built. You can imagine how this can get really fun and creative. And obviously I've spent a little bit of time talking about fun. We think that there's enormous potential here to introduce video games that are more engaging than they have ever been for blind people. And so I'm lucky to have just a little bit of vision, enough where I could once enjoy video games. The new ones have gotten just too small. Yeah, I feel like the text just keeps getting smaller. You have to pick out. It's more and more of a needle in a haystack. The haystacks get bigger and the needle gets smaller as we get 4K games and stuff. But I grew up loving these games, loving games like The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and I don't believe that there's truly an experience for blind gamers yet, that is high production, that is really as evocative as a game like The Ocarina of Time. But we're actually working on a game just like that, using these cubes that we're really excited about. To just give you a little preview of what that game is going to be like. Um, it's a bit of a survival game, where you are, for example, one of the opening scenes is you are on an island, and you are shown that your cubes can be used as you can build basically containers out of wood, like wooden containers out of your cubes, and then you will start to hear it rain, and you need to catch the rain with your cubes, with the baskets you've made, accumulate that, and then you obviously then use that water to sustain yourself. Over time, you learn to craft more and more tools. For example, you'll craft different weapons, you'll craft different traps to catch wildlife, and you'll quite literally assemble an array of tooling that you'll then use to um, either fight things, or in a sort of a tower defense paradigm, create structures that need to be resilient to different elements, so on and so forth. Build sails to go farther. We're really excited about this, and you know, obviously want to get your guys' feedback. Last preview, we're also working on a puzzle pack. Um, with this paradigm, we can unlock a lot of really fun and fast interactions for um, getting information from a scene. And so, for example, if you're playing a game like blackjack or poker, and you're blind, for me, I love these games, but it's in a social setting. I sometimes get embarrassed to play them because I don't have a great memory, and sometimes when I'm playing poker, I forget what the hand is like 20 times, and I get embarrassed to have to ask someone to tell me, hey, what are the cards that are flipped open in poker? What does the dealer have? Um, but with this paradigm, let's say you had a version of poker that just uses the cube sides as the cards. um, you can just with your finger put your finger near a card, and you have your headphones in, and it can just tell you exactly, okay, this is what this face is. Or you can just ask the system to read you, hey, what are the 5 cards the dealer has across the table, and you can just basically ask, you get that information with a little bit of privacy. And so you can imagine we can do chess with these, we can do checkers, we can do tic-tac-toe. And it's tactile, and you have like a more engaging kind of audio experience with it, and a multiplayer, so on. And so this is sort of the range of experiences we're going to be bringing up soon. And we're working as fast as we can to do it. We're really excited to say that we received our first investment from a group of professors at Stanford, and we're optimistic that we're still really scrappy, but we are starting to get the support. And all we really would hope from the community is, if you guys like what we're doing, and believe in what we're doing. If you can, help us get pre-orders or um, help us show as much demand as possible for what we're making. Um, and of course, if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to share. I definitely do want to ask you guys about pricing, what you guys think is reasonable. We're still at a phase where we can, impact, like, to some extent, the pricing, to some extent. And so these are kind of things like I want to hear from you guys. What is too much? Um, and of all the things I just talked about, the different games we're working on, which do you want first? Which are the most exciting? Are things I really want to hear from you guys. Um, but with that, thank you very much.
Awesome. So thanks, Adrian, so much. This is Ryan. So if anyone has any questions for Adrian, please raise your virtual hand or your physical hand, and we'll kind of go through there. Dawn, I see that you have a question. I'll go ahead and ask to unmute you.
Thank you. Hopefully that unmuted me. I think that's really cool about the manipulatives and changing what the camera can see. But would your coding software as well make it possible to make apps?
Yes, absolutely. And so the first demonstration we showed, if I can go back here. So this is when we were still using tiles before we started to use the cubes. And so what you're seeing, this person is actually making an app. That website you see behind there is called a React application. And so that is actually spitting out a full application quality code. And so I think that the thing with app development is web application development is you can see we already are doing that. When it comes to iPhone applications, for example, right, it depends on the use case, right? So for example, if there are certain, like, our goal isn't to replace Swift or a programming language, right? It's not that we're gonna use the codes to write functions, but there are a lot of aspects that go into app development that can be expressed really easily with the codes, with the cubes rather. And so, for example, let's say you want to make a 3D game, which we could call it, then you can define the 3D world using the cubes, export it as a full-on application world, and then you just add any logic you want. So, for example, if you want to add, like, if you want to use a third-party code library to add some effects, then you can just use real code, use Swift code or JavaScript code, and have the cubes and the real code work together with each other.
So if you wanted to reassign the QR codes later to be another sort of a picture, can you do that, or are they fixed in what image they have attached?
Yeah, no, it's completely flexible. In fact, so for example, if you're playing chess with the cubes, the different faces will be the different chess pieces, and so they're totally dynamic according to the application.
Oh, that's cool.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Don, for your question. If you have more, go ahead and just raise your hand, and we'll get back to you. Stacy, I see that you have your hand raised next. I'll ask to unmute. Or you got it. We go.
Yep. Hi, Adrian.
Hi there.
So the first year that you came and taught my students, I think it was 2019. I don't remember, 2018, 2019. And I think for those people that can't see your demonstration, I wanted to kind of give a little description for people to better kind of understand if you don't. So when Adrian first came and taught and did his presentation to my students, he had like a mat. And if you just imagine like a mat that you could lay on the table, and then he had these cutouts. And he said, okay, these certain size cutouts are for pictures, and these certain size cutouts is for text, and this is for the top bar, and this is for the bottom. And, you know, he had all these different size cutouts, and then he laid them on the mat. And so you could actually feel how your, you know, web design was, what your web was going to look like, or your design for your web page. And so you could actually feel it, and then it moves it into the computer, right? Am I explaining that right, Adrian?
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah. So it was really an eye opener, because like he was saying that, you know, when you're trying to create or web design on your own and you don't see, you don't know what it looks like. But this way you could actually put things where you wanted it on this mat, and then it just transferred it into the computer. And this year he came back and also taught some of my students. And why don't you explain to them what you were doing with the Pictionary?
Yeah, so we had really early cubes before we had the magnetic ones, and we were asking students um, to basically, one student would make a shape for a prompt. So for example, we'd say dog, and a student would try to create a dog from the shapes, and then hand it to the other student, who would try to guess what the other student had created, so whether it was a dog or whether it was a sword.
Yeah, so it's truly amazing what these cubes can actually transfer into. So one question that I do have, so if you were to create something, could you then move your design into a 3D printer and have it print out? Is that
Absolutely.
compatible? Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, you can export your creations in any file format. Like OBJ, STL is the one that's best for 3D printing. And you can export your stuff in STL.
All right. Thank you, Adrian.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Bob, I see your hand is raised, and then Farhang and Logan will get to you next.
Hi, Adrian. I was curious, what is the size of the cubes or the blocks? And then second question, how many cubes do you get? Do they come in like sets? And how many
Yeah,
do you get?
great question. Great question. So they are about 40 millimeters. Yeah, they're about 40 millimeters. They'll be in that range. So that's about an inch and a half in that range, about an inch and a half cubed. And you get 64. You get 64 cubes. And they'll be a little cuter than these. um,
And so when you said you have like unlimited, they like represent the different pixels on the screen, and so you have like an unlimited number. I guess you're limited to your worktop surface for how many cubes you can lay out on your worktop. Is that how that
yeah,
works?
yeah, totally. Exactly. So you're welcome to buy as many cubes as you'd like. And so definitely don't cap you there. And so yeah, totally. So because you will be wearing the strap on your head, you know you really can build as much as much house as you have, like but totally, yeah, it really is the size of your desk or your comfortable work area.
And what are you thinking the cost of like 64 cubes would be?
Yeah, so we have a starter kit, right, with 64 cubes, a strap, and the early games we're shooting for $400 for you guys. That will also include tactile book for the education, for the blind market. And so we're thinking in that price range. There might be some other accessories that we're excited to talk. We're not ready to share yet. That could bump the product a little bit. But we're hoping to. We understand that the market, there's some crazy prices out there for accessible technology. But we want to keep it. We basically, what we're hoping is we can make it a product where the sighted kids are excited about the new Xbox and they run $400-500. If we can offer something in that price range, I think it makes blind kids just excited. We'd love to be able to do that.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. And then Farhang, I see that you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Good morning, Adrian. Thank you very
morning.
much for the presentation. It's been a wonderful presentation. But since I have not much idea about 3D pictures or printers, would it be possible that you come and give an in-person demonstration so we can understand it better?
Absolutely. I would love to do that. May I ask where you're located?
Not at my place at the Vista Center in San Jose.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
Lisa can arrange one with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you need to, then Lisa will have to contact you to get something arranged, or Ryan, one of the two. That would be
Awesome.
great, because I don't understand much of this, although you gave a very, very clear and good presentation. I don't have much idea what's going on.
No, I totally understand. It's you know, it's one of those things where I think, you know, I spent all day explaining it and do my best, and I understand it's very abstract, and so very excited to be able to come and show in person.
Thank you, Adrian.
Good question, Farhang. Okay, do you have another question? Or are you good?
No, I'm done, Ryan. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good question. Okay, thanks, my friend. Okay, Logan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello. So one thing that has kind of confused me from the presentation is, so like if you build, like let's say an app or a game or something like that, when you have these blocks put together, do you need to I guess keep them that way? So there's specific blocks are that specifically, so you need to get different blocks to be different things, or would it be like kind of like segmented where it's like, okay, I'm building this, and then once that's like uploaded, I guess, then I could reshape it to be something else? Or is it like that has to stay in that exact shape for it to function properly?
Yeah, it's a great question. Great question. And so no, you can totally take your designs apart and edit them. And so one example is like, let's say you're building like a little town, and you have like a dog that you've built, and you know you have your little scene with your town and the dog, and you want to like change the dog to a cat. We have a way for you to edit anything you've made beforehand. And you know the biggest weakness right now, as you guys might be guessing, is let's say you build something really complicated, right? You have 32. So you build something that takes 50 blocks, and you save it, right? You save it into the computer, and then now you can basically access it at any time. You can basically, anything you've previously made, once it's saved, you can basically kind of like summon it and then attach it to a single cube. So for example, if you built a house and you want to place that house in a village, you can save that house to a single cube, and then go into a mode where you're basically composing, like a city planning almost. And so let's say then, okay, you want to edit the house. What we would do in this case is you would basically cycle through all your previously made stuff, and you would get to, you listen, okay, here's my house, here's my fire station, here's, whatever, the police department. And let's say you want to change the police department. You get to the police department, and then we'll guide you, the application will guide you into kind of shortest path for you to rebuild it. And then you can edit it and save it, discard it, whatever. And we are working on something that we're not totally ready to share that's going to make that a lot easier. But in short, yes, you can edit anything you make. You can save it and edit it anytime.
Good question, Logan. Don, I see that your hand is raised.
It wasn't meant to be raised if it was raised.
Oh, sorry. Don Rector, not Don Wood. Okay. My apologies.
Yeah. Actually, not a question, but kind of a recommendation. I, by the way, come out of a marketing and sales background of startups. You badly need a marketing person to form your messaging. and I don't mean this as insulting at all, you have put a presentation together from your perspective, and you know all about your product. And I think you've got a great idea here and a great concept. Get somebody to put your messaging together, and I suggest that you do it around a simplified demo.
Gotcha. No,
Not a
thank you.
general expression, but a very specific demo. Okay,
Gotcha.
that's
No.
all.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I appreciate
Don.
that feedback. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
This is Bob, Adrian. I was thinking maybe there's a way that, you know, Vista Center can work with you and maybe somebody with a grant or a sponsor, and we could get a starter pack or two and actually have them at the Vista Center, and then students or clients could come into the Vista Center and experience your product and see what it's like, and see if that's something that they want to get into, and then buy their own sets, you know, for taking home and using them at home or something like that. That might be a possibility.
We would love that. We would totally love that. And absolutely, you know, really appreciate the if you think about a demo. I gotta admit to you guys, the videos you saw, it's like 3 a.m. programming to get that done. And so you guys are truly seeing this like as it happens. You know, but totally really excited to, you know, keep pushing it to the next level. And if there was an opportunity for us to get some to you guys, we would love that.
So this is Stacy again, Adrian. So just so everybody knows, the in-person demo, that's why I kind of explained that map and the mat with the different pieces to kind of give that visual. The in-person demo is amazing, and you guys would totally understand it once you felt it. I did write to you back, Adrian, asking if you wanted to come in and do an in-person demo for the adults and one for our youth. But just so everybody knows, also Adrian is going to be going off to Seattle to finish up your PhD or to get your PhD. So
Yeah, to get my PhD.
come back when he's in town and do those. But we would love to host you both in Palo Alto and in San Jose.
Thank you so much, Stacey. We're looking forward to those next in-person demos. And if anyone else, you know, outside of the area, we're hoping to reach out to the Chicago Lighthouse and you know, really try to do as many demos as we can. Please let us know.
And Stacey, you were mentioning the you know, the tactile in-person experience, and we actually are lucky enough to Logan did ask a question earlier. Logan was actually one of the participants in Stacey's youth program over the summer and has actually been a few times. Logan, would you want to share your experience of your recent interaction with the cubes?
Oh, okay.
Not to put you on the spot, but go ahead. You've got the floor.
Okay, so I guess to my experience with it, and you know, Miss Stacy kind of pointed this out a little bit, is when we were, you know, for lack of a better term, messing around with the cubes, it was sort of trying to taking the concept of like taking like these like little wooden blocks that had like Velcro on them and trying to imagine something we wanted, whether like, yeah, whether that was like a dog or a bridge or a sword or whatever, and kind of getting that, being able to sort of mush that together. Like it's kind of like, you know, kind of like Legos in a way, where it's like you have an image in your mind, but you also have the tactile feedback to understand. And it was if I had to, it was informative. You know, it was something that it really helps put it into perspective what this product would do in a way. And so, yeah, hopefully that helped.
Thanks.
Great answer, Logan.
Thanks, Logan. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else have any questions before we go on to the next thing? All right, Bob, it looks like we're good. Questions. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
So no other questions for Adrian? I actually have two if nobody else does. So the mat that Stacy was talking about, do you still use that with the cubes, or now that you've gone onto the cubes, it's?
Yeah, so we don't, we're not right now. We're getting really good, like we kind of feel like what we saw kids building at our last presentation, we thought that the mat would kind of be a constraint, you know, now that we've gone like fully 3D. That being said, we worked really hard so that like the magnets like kind of they line up in like a perfect grid. And so like we're definitely thinking about offering a mat for those who want it. We think that for some people it could be, you know, it could have some benefit. But yeah, you don't need the mat. You don't need the mat. But we are, if there's demand for the mat, you can definitely make a mat.
Okay. And then something related to something you mentioned early on about your experience with the students in Thailand. Can you tell us a little bit about the travel program for the blind that the one student put together?
Oh, yeah. So they were curating information. It was basically like a forum. Yeah, so it's with Jekyll, you can create blog posts pretty simply. And so their vision was to create a website, and I'm sure this has been recreated elsewhere, but I think I've heard of one in the States, but yeah, essentially to promote and review certain hotels, certain airlines, and excursions, yeah, create kind of a resource for like a community around blind travel experiences.
And do you know what their website is?
Oh, you know, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't know whether they ever ended up like whether it's still up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was like 20. It was like in 2018, 2019. Yeah.
Well, maybe they've really developed it and polished it up.
You got me curious. I definitely should reach back out. Definitely hoping to go back and show some cubes over there too.
Bob, it does look like we do have one more question for Farhang. Go ahead, Farhang.
Thank you, Ryan. Adrian, I'm not a computer geek. I don't have any programming skills. I've never created a web page or website. Now you said with the help of these blocks, we can create websites.
Yeah, totally.
Without having any of this computer programming knowledge?
Absolutely. So for example, you still need to use a keyboard, but you can like say you want to build a website that has a navigation bar at the top and it has, you know, below that a section with information and so on and so forth. You can express the entire thing with the cubes. So you would lay out the shape with the cubes of all the sections, and then you would type what you want to go into each of those sections. And then as you type, you will get feedback about how much space your the words you've put are taking up. So for example, if you have a little bit of padding and it's really squished together, or if you have a lot of padding and there's, you know, it's expansive room around the text, you'll get feedback for those things. And then obviously you'll understand the shape because you can feel it. And then yeah, you can publish it in real time without having to write a single line of code.
Wow, I would be very interested in seeing it in person, how it's being done. Because I always want to find somebody who can create a website. And if that's the case, I can create the websites on my own. It will be really interesting to know how it is done.
Absolutely. The one distinction I want to draw is that you can, with the cubes, you can lay out the information in a spatial visual way.
Mhm.
So all of the web design, but if for example, you want your website to do mathematics or perform a like special calculation, I do still think that just regular code is the best solution for that.
Uh-huh.
But the reality is that a lot of websites these days are basically like brochures. They're really, you know, like kind of just illustrations of an idea. They're really not performing a lot of complicated logic. Um, and so like I feel like a lot of the web design market is just you're really buying the design more so than you're buying the code.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Adrian. I hope Stacy arranges some sort of an in-person presentation in the San Jose Vista Center as soon as possible so that we can come and meet you.
Thanks, Farhang. Those are wonderful questions, and definitely we're all excited that you're excited to learn more about it, and that's good.
Thank you, Ryan.
My pleasure. Dean, I see that you have a question. Go ahead.
Actually, I got a couple of questions. I'm a web developer, so the first question is, what makes this easy better? Because I can just type keyboard and I can use a screen reader or magnifier to use like Wix or all these other stuff, Squarespace and all these other web development software. What makes this one different?
Absolutely. So with Wix and Squarespace, you can navigate through the interface, right? You can get a voice to tell you, this thing is first, this thing is second. But do you really have a sense of this thing is bigger than this thing? If you can't see it all, and you're designing a website, does the screen reader tell you this section of your website is twice as big as this other area of your website?
Okay.
Like,
and also,
right,
go ahead.
Oh no, so I guess I just want to express like it's about understanding the layout, as opposed to like you certainly like you can even use a template, right? Because essentially Wix and Squarespace are template rearrangers, and you can use template rearrangers, but it's one, it's faster. It's dramatically faster to lay out a website in a tactile way, but two, laying out in a tactile way gives you a deeper appreciation of what it means. So for example, sometimes some of these details, like whether or not, if you're making a website, whether or not you choose to use a sidebar or whether or not you choose to use a top bar, sometimes it's kind of an aesthetic choice. It's like sidebars in enterprise apps like Asana have become really popular in Slack. And so it's like, it's important for blind people to look at, understand like the shape of these things. Because if you don't, then you're sort of like, you're that much more blind to it, right? You're just even that much more blind to the trend.
Okay, so the second question is, okay, I'm visually impaired, but I can see. So when I get stuck, like say I want to change color and I have problem using color, I know how to use CSS and hexadecimal in the CSS file. But let's say you're just a regular programmer or visually impaired or blind, how are you going to tell what color you have on this software without using CSS? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the color will ultimately be in CSS, right? Like whatever you define will be exported to HSL or hex. And I love that you asked that question because it actually is like one of my primary research questions in my PhD, is audio representations of color. It's generations of artists have tried and failed to, adequately, connect sight and, and sound in that way. But it is actually like a primary area of my research. And so in short, there are audio representations of sound that are effective. Obviously the challenge is the range of how many colors you can express, and the kind of how the relationships between colors. For example, if you have an audio representation of red, an audio representation of blue, can you combine them to get purple? Right. This is where like audio color becomes more complicated. But there, the solution lies in attaching colors more closely to emotions, where the ultimate function of color in a website in the context of marketing is to make the user feel a certain way, whether that's balanced, that's like the majority of like Facebook, LinkedIn, they go with the blue, right? It's a kind of very unopinionated, balanced color. But Yahoo wanted to be a little more mystical, so they went purple. And so it's like sort of thinking backwards from, okay, here is the like the commercial lexicon of like things we feel, and what are colors that, what are sounds that if you hear them, sure, everyone might not say red, but if enough people can map that sound back to the same feeling that you would get by looking at a red branded website, then we start to approach, you know, a language that blind people and sighted people can speak together about color. And so I'm sure we're working on it, and we're optimistic that we'll be able to have audio-based color solutions.
Yeah, because I know I'm working on a project with another person on doing Pulsar, and they say Python has these kind of tools. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your great questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dean. Does anyone else have any questions? We are running out of time.
Adrian, this is Bob. So I have a question about just how it functions. So if you have your iPhone strapped onto your head, I'm assuming it's using the camera in the phone to assess the location of the blocks that you have laid out. Is that what it's doing? And then that's going into the app that's on the phone to check that spatial alignment of everything? Is that how that works?
Yeah. So we've published a patent on it. So happy to share. In essence, we're using a combination of sensors in the phone, and so you can think of it as like an augmented reality application, where we do like plane detection on like your workspace. And once we have a plane for your workspace, which you get using basically infrared, or it works on both the Face ID camera has a dot projector on it, and the back of the iPhone Pro has a LiDAR on it. You can use these things to get those planes and go from there. You know, don't want to give too many details away, but yeah, that's the basic premise.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any other final questions for Adrian before we wrap things up?
I have a one last question. So in the demonstration that I was a part of, and in this presentation, you've mentioned like you have a headband that holds up the phone. My question being is like is that the representation of what, just a representation, or is that the actual headband? Because I'm a very paranoid person. So it's like, I would think, putting this in the headband, after a while, that my phone just rolls off onto the floor. So like, do you have any thoughts of like making like it as like a kind of hook, or just looping it in and like tying it tight, kind of? Oh, and sorry for my dog.
No worries. No, great question. You're right that that render is just a representation. We're working on a new headband right now that it's not ready to show yet, but we're pretty excited about it. And would love to get your feedback on it actually. Yeah, it'll be pretty secure. And one thing I want everyone to have in mind is that within the next few years, it's inevitable that Apple will release a great headset themselves. And that will likely be the container for this product. And so we're kind of just like thinking ahead of like we're writing the code will be the same on the new device. And so something to keep in mind.
Maybe Apple will buy out your headband.
that would be a fun turn of events.
Well, Adrian, thank you very much for your presentation today.
Just one more suggestion can I give, Bob?
Sure, go ahead.
Regarding the color which Dean was talking about, there's an app called Inspector which describes the color when you focus the app on that particular item. That's what I want to say. That's it.
Oh, I'll definitely check that out. Thank you.
It's called Inspector. Thank you.
Is that?
It's an app.
Is it an iPhone app?
It's an Apple app, yeah.
Beautiful.
It's free. Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Oh.
much, Adrian. Thank you, everybody. Bob, Ryan,
Thank you, guys.
Lisa, Stacy, thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Uh,
Again, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Tech It Out with Vista. We hope to be able to have an in-person demonstration with you in the near future, and wish you the best of luck. So thank you very, very much.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
You too.
Thank you, Adrian, and we'll be in contact.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.